Yo, what's going on, guys? Chris Bonner here, Overtime Athletes, another series in the How to Sprint Faster department. I really want to get you guys fast, and I want to provide for you from a building block process, how to elevate your athletes if you are an athlete or if you're a coach, whatever it takes to go ahead and go there. I also alluded to in the last video with the upper cross, essentially there's a lower cross, and by breaking down an athlete to the most minimal form, we're able to create the most efficiency. Like I said, when it comes to speed, now when it comes to power, brute strength, a lot of times I let my athletes go. When it comes to actual linear speed, I like to break them down and make them as efficient as I possibly can. Right, so another building block in that I constantly working on them is going to be in the mobilization and activation of certain muscles. And today, last video I talked about upper cross syndrome. This one I'm going to talk about lower cross syndrome and what you typically see. So for you guys to understand, I'll use the terms that Paul Chek often coined. I think they were, and don't quote me on that. I believe I first heard it from him. If it wasn't him, if it's somebody else, I apologize. Shout out to you for naming it, but it's an easy way to understand. And that's going to be Donald Duck, which is going to be anterior pelvic tilt, and Pink Panther, which is the butt tucked under, which is going to be posterior pelvic tilt. These are the two syndromes that you can experience. Now, the latter is typically the most common, and what I mean by that is, like I said last time, a lot of us as student athletes sit at a desk all day. So like I said, in the upper back, it's rounded and you're constantly texting or up front. Here, what you're gonna see is you're always sitting, right? So if I'm always sitting, right, there's actually a group of muscles, two muscles, that are right here that essentially, when you're sitting, they become tight. They're your hip flexors. What do? They flex your hip. So if you think about a muscle running from here to here, they flex your hip, right? So essentially what happens is when you go to get up, a lot of athletes have that, and that looks like a tight upper back, right? A tight lower back, tight hip flexors. And then they'll usually see a weakness in the glutes as they do that, or they actually become inhibited as they sit that much. So what we want to do from a corrective stretching standpoint, not from a strengthening standpoint of the glutes, from a corrective stretching standpoint, is realize first how that's preventing us from sprinting faster, and then what we can do. So just a quick explanation. The reason why you can't sprint faster when you have tight hip flexors or lower cross anterior pelvic tilt is most athletes, when they go to take a stride or sprint, right, that hip is never fully extended and getting that most out of that. Now, I could go into a slew of this, but you guys know the only way you get faster is stride length versus stride frequency. This is directly fucking up your stride frequency. If this hip is flexed and not getting full extension, you're not getting the highest stride length as possible. Stride length. This is messing up your stride length, not your frequency. So if I'm not able to get the longest stride that I possibly can over the course of, say, 40 yards, then I'm not being the most efficient, fastest athlete that I possibly can. So the number one thing that you need to focus on as an athlete as far as lower cross syndrome, actually I'll give you two stretches and tell you why, but number one is going to be opening up that hip flexor and really stretching it. An easy way for you to do that is just simply hold a lunge pose, really get into this area here, put that knee down, drive that hip into the ground as much as you possibly can. If you guys got variations, crossing the arm over, crossing over the knee, whatever it is that works for you, using flossing with the band so you have resistance pulling you, whatever that may be, just make sure that you guys are opening up that hip, and make sure that you're performing this before you're actually sprinting. Like I also said, what good of an athlete are you if you have power in your hip flexor, but you're not opening up your stride all the way, getting full hip extension? It doesn't make sense. Make sure you're stretching that beforehand, before your training, to mechanically be sound in your sprint. Like I said, I'd rather have an athlete mechanically sound than an athlete with a great deal of power, because power will come once that hip opens up if the athlete has it. The next one that I'll just go over really quick that I absolutely love to do is just full rolling out the Piriformis and the IT band. Make sure that you guys are really opening this up. When the hip's flexed and you're producing force out of it. That piriformis can really be a muscle that essentially takes you away out of your efficiency of sprinting form. So what I like to do is just cross this leg over, get on that butt cheek, and you're gonna feel a very sensitive muscle in that area. As soon as you hit that, just slowly roll back and forth on it. Some guys like to ask me how many rolls back and forth. Really, honestly, just stay on that shit till it doesn't feel sensitive anymore. And that will help you out with the piriformis. And then I like to transfer over to the IT band and really just go back and forth, rolling on that as much as I possibly can, really breaking up that tension in that connective tissue there and really getting that release. And those are a couple things that you can help yourself with. Now, obviously, like I said, there's also a posterior pelvic tilt. That's usually when an athlete doesn't have, they're tucked under, they got tight lower abdominals. Really what I would do with that is really focus on stretching the upper hamstrings. If you find yourself in that kind of muscular pattern, if you will, but almost 90% of you have the tight hip flexors, and really the number one thing you have to think about for getting faster is opening up those hips and releasing them and getting full extension when you run. I hope that helps. Chris Barr, I'll holler at you next time. Boom. Yo, what's going on, fellas? Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in getting faster as an athlete, go ahead and click my advanced series right here, where I provide you with free lessons to make you become faster. I'll see you inside.